So another thing we want to make sure is that the crank spins nice and freely. If it doesn't spin nice and freely, that means that it's binding somewhere. It could either be binding on your thrust washer setup, or it could be that the bearings themselves, the bottom side of it isn't clean, causing it to be offset. So our crankshaft spins nice and freely. We got a good layer of assembly lube on our journals. And that's all you really need. You don't need a whole, I see people squeezing and then it comes out from the sides. You're making a mess. When you're building a lot of engine blocks, you use it more sparingly. I guess a lot of people that don't really build engines have a lot of assembly lube to waste, but I go through it pretty fast, so I try to be more strategic as I use it. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start putting the caps in, getting all that set up. Okay, so we got our caps all nice and clean. Like I said before, it's really important that we get this bottom side clean. Another thing that's really important is to make sure that these faces are clean. And one trick that you can do is when you're on the minimum side of the rod journals is just sand these down a little bit. So you'll sand these down a little bit, and that'll help to get you proper clearance again. But you don't want to go too much. It's just a little bit. You'll go about 3 or 4 times on a sheet of sandpaper, about 150 grit, and from there, it's just a little bit more prep work that you're going to do to get these caps ready. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to install the top sides of the bearings. So our bearings, as you see, for mains, they have 2 faces. The side with the hole always goes on the block. Sometimes you get dummy bearings that have the same face on both ends, but you want to make sure, usually there's a top and there's a bottom. So this side that's flat, no holes, no groove, this is going to go on our caps, and then this side with the groove and the hole, that's going to go on our block. And what that hole does is that feeds oil into the crankshaft. From there, from the main journal, it goes to the rod journal. So that's why you need to have these set up properly, or else you'll have oil pressure issues or lubrication issues. So now we got our block ready for our mains. We'll just dab a little bit on top of our main bearing journals. The nice thing about the Datsun L series stuff is it comes numbered, so you can't really mess it up. It also comes with these arrows. But if it doesn't have the if you have a block that doesn't have the arrows, the tangs on the bearings always go on the same side. So you'll see a tang on the block. It's on this side. It's the side closest to me, which means that this is going to go like this as well. It's not going to go like this. These tangs have to match up top and bottom. And then this is our number 2. We'll go ahead and put on number 2. Same thing, tang this side, which means it's facing forward. And this is number 5, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There should be some drag, because that's going to tell you that you have pressure on the journals, but it should want to spin. As you see before, I was able to spin it and it spun nice and freely. Now it doesn't spin as freely, but I'm able to do this with the finger. And you talk to a lot of old-timers, machinists, and they'll tell you. They can tell you how much clearance you got by just doing this. So I'm really loving this assembly. This came out perfect. So thank you. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to get our pistons put in. And do the top part. Alright, welcome to the next part of our engine block building series. So today we got our rods getting heated, getting ready to press the wrist pins in. One thing I really want to talk about really quick is wrist pin offset. So a lot of people don't know about a wrist pin offset, and what that means is that on the piston itself you'll see that the wrist pin is offset towards one side, and so that means that's towards the major thrust side of the cylinder. So as the piston comes down, this is going to be the thrust side on the cylinder wall, which gets more wear and basically just gets more wear than this side. But what they do to counteract the wear, vibration, and reduce the power loss from the friction is they offset the wrist pin a little bit to one side, which would be the thrust side. So not all pistons come offset. It's something that's been done more recently to improve energy efficiency, reduce vibration, reduce knocking. So these pistons, we worked with the manufacturer overseas, had a lot of new technology brought into these pistons to revamp the L series engines, to bring that engine into the modern age. So as you can see, we went with a newer modern ring set. We put in an accumulator groove. We got bigger holes for oil to drain. Our design on the bottom itself, it's a lot stronger. We went with a thicker crown, a lighter piston material composition. Also, we went with the lighter wrist pin. So now what we're going to do is we're going to set. So when we're pressing our pistons in, we're making sure that we're putting the front of the rod with our marking on the top. So it goes just like that. We already got the machine, our rod press set up on the depth, so that way we just put in everything comes out nice and centered. So in order, just really quick as well, in order to reduce weight, we went with a thinner wrist pin. Cut off a few grams. These will handle twice the chamber pressures. So if you're going anything basically under 300 horsepower, these lighter wrist pins will handle. If you're going into a turbocharged application or nitrous application, you want to go with the thicker wall wrist pin. But for basically for everybody's build, most likely everybody's build, we're going to be going with these. I think they're about 5mm wall versus the old school 8mm wall. So with our ring inside, we're going to square it up to the cylinder. And I have my feeler gauge right here. Check the ring gap. I could actually file a little bit. I'm setting mine at 12,000 for the top. And that's a lot better. So it is important that you have proper ring gap clearance, because if you don't, what happens is the ring gap will close and then you'll break a ring. So we're going to do this to all the rings, and we're going to set each set for each cylinder. I'm going to first make sure my rings spin freely in the grooves. And then from there, I want my oilers on top of the wrist pins. And then I want my ring gaps on the skirts. So we got this one on there. And then we got this one there. Next. Next thing I want to do is put some oil, not assembly lube, just regular motor oil. Get it in the grooves. This is really important because you don't want to have a dry startup and you'll burn the rings. We have our front. And I use ring compressors. This is 87mm. So like we talked about before, the tangs, they're gonna match up. So the tang for this one goes on this side. Since we are using our ARP, we're going to use ARP assembly that comes equipped with it. Our ARP fasteners. Something that we need to check is this is 45 foot-pounds. So this is going to be our new torque sheet for the new hardware that we put on. And other than that, that's it.